I think it goes without saying that Rocky Mountain Construction has made some of the best roller coasters in the world. Whether it be Steel Vengeance, Zadra, Goliath, Twisted Timbers, you name it, these rides are absolutely amazing and are some world-class rides. Now on YouTube, we see rankings of how high they go, how fast they go, where they rank among other coasters, but what I haven't seen is a video that goes through how much each of these rides costed. So today I'm going to take you through the top 10 most expensive Rocky Mountain construction coasters. I wanted to start things off by showing you rides that I thought were going to make this list, but actually didn't. The first of which is Steel Vengeance, Cedar Point's premier ride and one of the most famous roller coasters in the world at this point. Steel Vengeance is pretty much known collectively as being the #1 ride in the world. Some people call it the perfect coaster, and it shows up in most enthusiasts' top 5. However, it only costs at about $7.5 million. This is very, very small. Let's compare it to Maverick. That costed $21 million. So, as we know, this is extremely cheap for a ride of this caliber, and that's why RMC is so valuable and why so many parks love their rides. In addition, we also know that Raptors only cost about $4 to $5 million, and Iron Gwazi costed about $9 million. All of these rides failed to make the top 10 and are still amazing rides, so it really goes to show that although the rides aren't expensive, it doesn't mean that they're worse. With that being said, let's get right into these rankings and show you guys what the top 10 most expensive RMC rides are. Number 10, Wicked Cyclone at Six Flags New England, costing about $11 million. Now, Wicked Cyclone is constantly known as being a very good RMC. Most would consider it to be an above average one. However, it is very small, so that largely contributes to the low ranking on this list. However, as a top 10 RMC in cost, it does actually have a price tag. Now, they actually estimate it to be about $10 million. However, when adjusted for inflation from about 2015, when this was made, we know that this is about $11 million that Six Flags ended up paying. Is it worth it? I think so. This is a standout ride in the park and really makes Six Flags New England what it is and how popular it is. Number 9, Outlaw Run at Silver Dollar City, costing $11.1 million US. Now, as we know, this is just barely above Wicked Cyclone at number 10, with just a $100,000 difference between the two rides. Now, I think that Silver Dollar City appears on this list mainly because it is a ground-up ride. Instead of converting an old wooden coaster, they pretty much just made this ground up, so that does elevate the cost a little bit. However, it's not one of those top rides on this list just because of the fact that it is older. A lot of the newer RMCs do cost more than the older RMCs, whether it be due to lumber costs, steel costs, or just having RMC be a better reputation and more demand for their products. However, this ride does show up at number 9 on our list and costs $11.1 million to make. Number 8, Medusa Steel Coaster at Six Flags Mexico, costing $11.3 million. Medusa is, like Outlaw Run, an older RMC, so it didn't cost as much as some of the other rides did. However, it was a conversion, so we can't use that excuse for the ride being this high in cost. What I think it comes down to is the fact that it's very high in distance from pretty much all the RMC factories. Transportation to Mexico of all of that track would cost a lot of money and thus resulted in this high of value. However, it's still barely above the last two rides, coming in at just $11.3 million. Number 7, Goliath at Six Flags Great America, costing $13 million. Goliath is pretty consistently known as below average RMC, and as a result, a lot of people don't expect it to cost that much. However, it did cost the park $13 million. I think this has a lot to do with A, the sheer size of this ride, and B, the fact that it is a ground up ride. Both of these did contribute to, in my opinion, the heightened cost. And at this time, I believe the RMC was starting to gain a lot of traction in parks, and parks had a higher demand for their rides. Thus, Six Flags had to pay a little more for Goliath, and that resulted in the $13 million cost. Number 6, Iron Rattler at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas, costing $13.5 million. As we know, Iron Rattler was one of the first RMCs to be made. Considering the fact that New Texas Giant only costed $5.5 million, we would reasonably expect Iron Rattler to not cost $13.5 million. However, we do expect that this ride would cost a little more, as it honestly is one of the better RMCs out there and appears in the top 10s, top 15s of a majority of enthusiasts. Now, the reason why this ride costed so much was not because the ride is big, tall, or fast. It's mainly because it was so old. Now, if we take into account inflation rates, we know that the $10 million that Six Flags spent all the way back in 2014 is worth about $13.5 million now. That's why this ride is at number 6. It didn't really cost that much at the time. However, in today's money, it's 13.5 million US dollars. 5. Wildfire or Coal Martin, costing $14.7 million. Wildfire is probably one of the least known RMCs out there, even though it honestly is one of the oldest ones. Wildfire doesn't get a lot of rave reviews among enthusiasts, mainly because enthusiasts don't have a reason to go to this park. Not a lot of people have ridden this ride, and as a result, it doesn't get a lot of hype. However, it did cost more than all the other RMCs that we saw on this list, at $14.7 million. It's not super tall or super fast, but I think the reason behind it is that A, it's a ground up, so it's going to cost more money to build all those supports, and B, the overseas transportation of the materials is very costly. I think both of these added up to cost about $14.7 million, and would cost more if the ride was larger. 4. Untamed at Walibi Holland, costing $15.2 million. Slightly above Wildfire, Untamed comes in as one of the, again, most underridden RMCs out there. Doesn't get a lot of hype in the enthusiast community just because not a lot of people have ridden it, and it doesn't have the best stats in the world. However, it is still an amazing ride from what I heard, and deserves all the credit and money that was put into it. Once again, I think these heightened costs were due to the fact that it's so expensive to transport all these materials overseas from the RMC plants, thus making the cost for the park a lot higher. 3. Zadra at Energylandia, costing $16.7 million US dollars. Zadra honestly has some of the best stats of any RMC out there. Just the fact that not a lot of people have ridden it makes this ride not appear in a lot of rankings for enthusiasts. However, it looks to be an amazing ride. The cost of it honestly makes sense. The ride is absolutely massive, looks amazing, and has some of the best stats out there, as you just said. In addition, we also know that once again, it's so expensive to transport the materials overseas. So we think that A, the sheer size of it, and B, the transportation costs, resulted in this ride being such high in price. Number 2, Lightning Rod at Dollywood, costing $22 million. So before I talk about this, I want to put this into context. Maverick at Cedar Point costs about $21 million, and Diamondback at Kings Island and a lot of the other hypers cost the same, about $22 million. So this ride is very expensive. It doesn't hold RMC's reputation of being the cheap route. This ride was so expensive as it really was a new concept for RMC. They haven't worked, of course, with a launch coaster like this, thus making this ride super expensive. The launch, all the maintenance issues that it had, and the fact that it was a ground up all made this ride extremely expensive. Of course, with the refurbishment, the money kept adding up. That resulted in this ride costing $22 million for Dollywood. However, I don't think they're really afraid to spend that money. They're dropping money all the time on rides like Outlaw Run and Time Travel recently in their other parks. So I think that $22 million is not really a huge scare factor for them, and they would still like to put in RMC rides in the future. Number 1, Hakuge, costing $25.9 million. I'm sorry if I totally butchered that name, but this ride is the most expensive RMC that was ever created. Just look at it. It is absolutely massive. And in addition to that, not only were all those materials having to be made and having to be paid for with that huge ride, but it also had to be all transported overseas to Japan. That costed so much money and resulted in this ride being $25.9 million. More than most B&M hypers, more than El Toro. Is it worth it? I don't know. I haven't ridden it, and not a lot of enthusiasts have ridden it. However, it does look absolutely amazing, looks like a phenomenal ride, and of course is honestly one of the most beautiful coasters out there. $25.9 million is, though, a lot of money. RMC is supposed to be like the discount kind of manufacturer, offering very cheap rides like Raptors. This $25.9 million ride doesn't really fit that mold. However, it is still amazing. And the fact that this is the most expensive coaster that RMC ever made, by far, goes to show just how great RMC really is in saving parks money. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this, please let me know in the comment section, as well as like and subscribe, as this did take me a while to make. See you guys next time.